So you're going to start with yarn. I'm using the sugar and cream cotton yarn that I got at Joann, and you're going to check to make sure that the information matches what we see in our pattern. So you want your yarn to be a 4 medium weight, and you want it to be a 5mm hook. And it will tell you what the gauge is right here for your hook. So 13 single crochet with 14 rows with a 5mm hook should get you the proper gauge for this yarn. So for materials, you will need your yarn, you will need a crochet hook, some stitch markers, a darning needle, scissors, a ruler, and that should be enough to get us started. So if you've never crocheted before, these next steps and the rest of the tutorial will be friendly to you. Beginning with a piece of yarn, you want your excess to be on the right and you want your skein yarn to be on your left, which will also be called your working yarn. So you'll create a small incline as I'm doing here so that we can create our loop, pull the yarn down and grab the skein yarn and place it on top of the excess yarn. We're going to take the skein yarn and pull it through the center hole from the back to create our loop. So slowly pick up your yarn and hold everything in place, and then you will take the skein yarn and insert it into the back of our loop. So pull it taut as I'm doing here, and if you've done it correctly it should look like this. You want to grab your crochet hook and insert it into the loop. If you pull on the skein yarn, it should pull taut. If it doesn't, you might need to redo it. But this is how you know if you've done it correctly. So I like to move it up and down just to be sure that it's not too tight, not too loose, and it should be moving around like that, which is really good. So when you're working with your yarn, you want to make sure that you are the one controlling every movement. So you will need to loop your working yarn through your hand in some way as I'm doing here. As you can see, I'm able to move the yarn freely through my hand. I can move it as the way that I want to, but I can also stop it from moving. So I'm going to put it back and I'm the one controlling it. It's not going anywhere. So you just need to decide how you want to loop it through your hand. You can loop it however is needed for you. It's different for everybody. You just want to make sure that you're the controller. So you also need to be sure that when you are working with your yarn that there's not too big of a gap. This is the gap I like. If you create too big of a gap like this, it's going to be very hard to work and move how you need to. So I would just create a small section where you can work like I'm doing here, and that should work really well for you. So we're going to begin by chaining 4, and the way you do that is you dip your hook underneath your yarn, you put it below, and then you turn over. This process is called yarning over, and then you're going to pull through the loop on your hook. So you're going to turn your hook, and you can see that I've kind of created a little bit of gap there to be able to pull my hook through. Go ahead and pull it through like that. And you want to create 4 of these. So we've created one already. We're going to create another one. And then 2 more. So 1 and 2. And that's how you chain. You want to make sure that your chains are not too loose or too tight, and you'll get a feel for this as you crochet more if you're a beginner. So just be patient with yourself. So I'm pointing to the 4th stitch from our hook. We're going to go into that stitch right there. We're going to insert our hook into the center. We're going to yarn over and pull through, and then we're going to slip stitch. So the way you do that is you just pull right through the other stitch on your hook. So now we're just going to see where our center circle is by pulling everything apart. You can see that my center circle is here. Just inspect it on yours. And then we're going to chain 3. So 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into the center ring. And then we're going to yarn over again and pull through. And then we will yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through the final 2. So that's our second double crochet. We want 1 more so that we can have 3 in our cluster. So we're going to yarn over, insert into the center ring, pull through, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through the final 2. So now we've created our first double crochet cluster. We want 4 of these total, so let's continue making them. So we're going to make 3 chains, so 3, and then yarn over, insert into our center ring, make sure it's actually in the center, pull it through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through the final 2. So we're going to keep on repeating this. I'm going to go through it with you just because this is the first round. I just want to make sure that as a beginner, if you are a beginner, that you're sure on the steps. If you are advanced, then feel free to skip forward. Okay, so we've created 2 double crochets. Go ahead and insert into the center, pull through 2, and pull through the final 2. Okay, so we're going to shimmy that down a little bit just to create some more room, and we're going to chain 3, yarn over, insert into the middle ring, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. So at this point, I hope that it's starting to become clear what we're doing here. It does change a little bit as we continue through the pattern, but for the most part, this is how you want it to look. So we're going to create 4 double crochet clusters. I call them clusters. I don't know if everybody else calls them clusters, but it's just like more than one double crochet section. And I think cluster is a cute word. So now we have our final one that we're making. So we're going to chain 3. We're going to insert into the center ring, yarn over, and pull through just like we've done before. There is one difference. Once we get to the end, you'll see what I mean. So let's do one more of those to finish our final cluster, and then we're going to chain 3 here. Okay, so I'm chaining 3, that's my 3rd chain, and then we're going to find the top stitch and insert it in there, and then slip stitch. So there you go. I'm just like, messing with it a little bit just to even everything out. It looks a little bit weird in the beginning because the first chain 3 that we ever did is a little separate from those 2 double crochets in the top. You can see I'm kind of shimmying it around. If yours looks like this, feel free to shimmy it as well. Otherwise, as you continue to go in the rounds, it's going to look better. And then I also pull on the center circle ring just to make that center circle a little less open. It's okay if it's a little bit open though, because it's kind of a nice feature. So we're going to chain 3 to continue. Oh, I lied. We're going to chain 1, and then we're going to insert into that first chain space, and we're going to do our first double crochet, and then we're going to do this 2 more times. So we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, and once I get it through, we're going to yarn over and pull through the final 2. Okay, so now we're going to create one more double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, and pull through the last 2. So that's our first cluster in the corner. We're going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then we're going to create one more double crochet cluster in the center. Yeah, so 1 is done, and we're gonna make another one. This is riveting stuff, I imagine. And then we're going to do one more. I enjoy doing voiceovers. Sometimes I don't want to do them because I'm like, is this adding? Is this helping? Is this detracting? I don't know. Hopefully this is helpful, but let me know in the comments if it is or isn't. And yeah, let's keep going. So I'm indicating that we're going to create 2 in each corner. So this will be a little bit different as we progress, but since this is the second round, we're going to create 2 in each one. So now that we've created our 2, hopefully you might have to pause and do that really quickly. Not really quickly, do it at your own pace. Everything's at your own pace. Okay, so I'm indicating here that we need to create one more double crochet because I did 2. I wanted to show you the last one so that way we can close it off together. So let's go ahead and insert and double crochet our last double crochet. And you can see here, this is what it looks like after you do your first couple of rounds. So we have 2 in each corner here. If you are missing one, go ahead and just take it out and redo it. But now we're going to slip stitch into that first stitch here, okay? It's going to be the first stitch that you stitched. You're going to insert it and then pull it through the stitch. That's how you slip stitch. And that is how your first rounds will look. So I'm indicating here that there might be a little section on yours. This is how it looks on mine, where there's a little bit of a stitch coming through that part. You just want to make sure that that gets lifted up when you chain, when you double crochet into that section. So if you do it properly, it shouldn't even show at all. So let's go ahead and chain 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to yarn over, insert underneath that section, and then create our first double crochet. And then we're just going to create one more because the first chain 3 that we did will act as part of that cluster. This will be a little bit different in the next round, but we'll get there as we get there. So now that I've created my 3 here, great. We're going to work all the way around and do the same thing, but in the corners, of course, you're going to do 2. So let's create 2 double crochets in this section. So we're going to create our cluster of 3 as normal, and then we will chain 3, create our second cluster. Same thing that we've been doing as we have gone along. So I've created 2 there, just be a little bit more clear, 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, and 2 here. But in the centers, you're going to create 1. Okay, don't skip the center chain spaces. You want to make sure that you create a 3 cluster in those chain spaces like I did at the beginning. So we're going to do 1 more double crochet in our corner, and then we'll chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then we're going to do 1 more double crochet in this corner, or 1 more double crochet cluster, excuse me, in this corner. So 2 and 3. Perfect, okay, and then don't forget to chain 1 in between each new section. Now we're going to create 1 double crochet cluster in here. So double crochet 1, double crochet number 2, and double crochet number 3. Amazing. Okay, so if you've gotten this far, great, let's keep going. We got quite a bit to go. So we're going to do our 2s in each corner and our 1 in the centers, and I'll meet you at the beginning. Okay, now you might have to pause since I skipped and go ahead and do yours, but here we are. This is how it should look when you get to the front again. So we're going to create a slip stitch. I'm going to show you a little bit closer. So on that first chain 3, we want to make sure that it's the top of the chain 3. This might be a little confusing for my visual, but just try to find it on yours. The easiest way to find it is to count those top 3 stitches, and then the one that's disconnected from that is the one. So go ahead and insert in there, yarn over, and then pull through, and then yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, you can see that doing that created that center chain space on the right, so that right center chain space, and that's how it should look for yours. So each new round will be a little bit different as we go along, but for this one we are still going to chain 3 at the beginning, but it is going to look a little bit different on how we connect everything as we go. So each row will change, so it'd be like one round is like it was in the last round, and then one round is like this. So we're going to start by chaining 3. That's going to be our step at each one. But this one won't be a part of the cluster, so we're going to create a new cluster in this section. So we are going to do 3 double crochets into this chain space here. So this is our second one, and then we're going to do 1 more. You can see that the chain 3 that we did over on this section is separate from the double crochet cluster that we just finished. This is going to be part of this center space. It's going to be that 3rd double crochet. So we'll do 2 here, and then that final one will be part of that 3. So as we get to the beginning, this will make sense. Let's go all the way around, and I'll meet you back here for 2. Okay. So I'm going to do 2 with you. So we've just finished this corner here, and we're going to work into this section. So we're going to do 2 double crochets, and we're going to slip stitch that chain 3 into our cluster. So we're going to yarn over, insert, and create our first double crochet. So 1 and 2. Okay, and now we're going to slip stitch this chain 3. So you want to find the very beginning of that chain 3, which is this one here. So we have 1, 2, and 3 of the cluster, and then we have the one right after it, which is our first chain 3. So find the bottom opening like this, insert into the bottom of it, just like that, And then we're going to pull through a stitch and then slip stitch right into it, just like that. So this is how this round will look. And you can see that that chain 3 is part of that other stitch. So now that we're in the center again, like we were before, we're going to chain 3, 3, and we're going to insert into that center. So you can start to see how the different rounds are a little bit different in the case that one round you are chaining 3 and it's part of your cluster, and then the next round you're chaining 3 and it's not part of your cluster, but it's a part of the other cluster. So here we've chained 3 and it's part of our cluster, but the next round is going to be like it was in the previous round, and you'll see that. Okay, so I'm just going to do things normally like before, do all the way around, and then slip stitch into that top chain 3. So let's work into it a little bit together. So do everything as normal. You're going to chain and double crochet 3 times into this space here. And then we're going to go into our corner and create our clusters. So 1, 2, and 3. And then chain 3. And then I'll meet you at the beginning when we're done. Okay, so now we're going to slip stitch into that first stitch, just like we've done before. So insert your hook into the center and pull through, and then slip stitch into that. Okay, so now we're going to chain our 3 and then work into this section over here and then go all the way around, and then I'll meet you back at the beginning there. So just as normal, we're going to chain 3 to start, and then we're going to create our 3 double crochet clusters into this chain space here. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so you can see we're here again with the round where you chain your 3, you do your 3 crochet clusters, and then you do your 2 and connect that one to the 2 crochet clusters. Hopefully that's clear and makes sense. I think as we continue to go, you'll see why we're doing it that way and why it makes sense. We're trying to keep this as clean as we can. So I have done my 2 as normal, and I'm going to slip stitch into that stitch and make it a part of my 3. This is the method that I like the most, as I think that it keeps everything really clean and separate. I have made granny squares in other ways, and it's not as clean, and I like this method more because it keeps all of the chain spaces very open and clear of each other. Okay, so now that we have connected them, we're going to go into that center chain space by chaining 3 first, of course. So 2, 3, and then entering into that center chain space. We're going to create 2 double crochet clusters because our chain 3 acts as one of our double crochets in this cluster. I think that hopefully it's starting to become really clear what we're doing. So let's just keep on working in, and I'll meet you at the last chain space. And yeah, you're just going to keep on working all the way around as normal, and I'll meet you at the end, and we're going to slip stitch. So I'm just counting to see how many rounds we have so far. Just do that as you keep on going to make sure you have the right amount. Okay, so slip stitch into that top stitch like normal. Slip stitching, pulling through. Perfect. Okay, so I'm just laying everything flat, counting 1, 2, 3, 4. We need 2 more of those rounds. Technically there are 11 rounds, but as you work up like that, you can just count to make sure that you have 6. So I worked around as usual, and I'm just going to slip stitch into that top stitch. Okay, go ahead and yarn over and pull through. There you go. And then we're going to continue by chaining 3, and creating 2 double crochets into this center section. 1 and 2. And then chaining 1, you can see that we have our 3 clusters there, or 1 cluster, sorry, of our 3 double crochets, and then just work all the way around like normal. And then we're going to slip stitch into that top stitch. Same steps as we continue to work through. And you'll repeat this exact same thing for your back panel as well. Okay, so just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we need 1 more round of until we get to that 6th round with that vertical line there. And now I'm just measuring to see how wide everything is. I think mine was about like 30 centimeters across each side, give or take. But it doesn't really matter as long as you have 11 rounds and you know what you want it to look like. So now we're going to move on to our ruffled edges, and we're going to create our ruffled edges on the sides. I took the side that has the string and put it at the bottom, and then we're going to turn our work, and then we're going to work into the furthest right section, so that way our ruffled edge is all the way on the edge of the side of the bag. Okay, so we're going to insert our hook in there, grab a new piece of yarn, and then we're going to have the excess on the right as normal and the skein yarn on the left. So we're going to loop that over our hook, I'll hold it in place, and then pull through. Once you do that, you want to make sure that you hold down the excess yarn. I like to put it on the back and then hold it down with my finger just like this, so that way I can keep it in place as I chain 1. So go ahead and chain 1. And then what we're going to do is create double crochets for our ruffled edge. So yarn over, insert into your first stitch space, yarn over and pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so you're going to do that once more into the same stitch space. So yarn over and pull through 2 and pull through 2 more. You're going to create 2 double crochets in each stitch space. So 2 there, 2 there, 2 there, 2 there, all the way across until you get to the end. So that's just for the first row of the ruffled edge. Okay, so you want to do 2 stitches into every stitch space for the first row. Okay, so I've done 1. This is how it looks if there's just 1 stitch, and then we're going to do a second stitch. So 2. Okay, so just continue doing that across the entire edge, and then we'll talk about what's happening next. So now that you have completed your first row of your 2 stitches into every single stitch, you want to now do 1 stitch in every stitch, and make sure that you repeat it on both sides of the bag until you have this. So now that you've have the ruffled edge, remember it's 2 in the first row and then 1 in the second row, and then your ruffled edge will look like this. Of course, you can up or lower your ruffled edges, you know, if you want to do you could do 2 in each row, or 1, either way, however you want. So now we're going to do the panels, the side panels. So working on the edge of that ruffled edge, you want to find your stitches. And so you can see this is how the front of it looks, and this is how the back of it looks. So you're going to find the stitches right at the top of the ruffled edge. You can see those stitches here. Those are the loops that we're going to work into. So we're going to work into those stitches here. And we're going to create this panel using a single crochet. So most of the bag has been double crochet, and this point we're doing single. Okay, so you're going to insert into that section of the bag, grab a new piece of yarn, and then we're going to just pull through. Might be a little finicky, but it gets easier as you work along. So hold that in place, and then you're going to chain 1 just to start it all off, and then you're going to work into each stitch as we go along. Okay, so into the next stitch, you're just going to insert it as normal into that stitch, and then yarn over and pull through 2, and that's how you single crochet. So continue doing that. Find the sections that you want to work into and create single crochets. Try to make sure that you create an even amount of stitches as you go along. If you create too many stitches, then your work will be kind of wavy. If you don't create enough, it will kind of shrink the bag down. You want to make sure it's an even amount of stitches so that way it lays flat all the way across. So just keep on finding those stitches and keep on single crocheting into all of them. That'll be the beginning of our first row, and then after you'll just continue to single crochet until you have the amount of rows that you want. So we're just going to finish that single crochet, and this is what our work is looking like so far. This is how you want it to look all the way across the entire border. So let's just keep on doing that until we have the entire thing done. And then, like I mentioned before, you'll just keep on doing that until you have the width that you want. So I'm just finding those edge stitches and single crocheting into each one of them. So when you're done, this is how your first row should look. You can see that mine is laying pretty flat. And this is how it looks if you turn your ruffle edged over. So yeah, you just want to keep on doing that until you have the exact width that you want. There's no particular width here. It really is dependent on you. If you want like an even looking one, I would say maybe do 4 to 6 rows, and that has gotten me a decent width. But again, it really depends on your yarn and size and your personal preferences. So this is how mine is looking, and I'm just going to repeat that on the bottom and on the other side, and then we will work on seaming it all together. So just to start with you, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to find the hole where I want to begin the panel. And of course you want to try to choose the furthest right of the side that you can. And then I'm just going to start working into it the same way that I did the other panel. So just going to create a loop and make a chain, and then just work into each of the chains. And then keep on working until I have the same width as my previous panel. So now that I have the bottom panel done along with the side, I'm going to do the same thing for the other side, and now we're going to work on seaming them together. So to seam them together, you're going to put the right sides facing, and of course move any yarn pieces out of the way so they don't get in the way of your seaming process. We're going to use the single crochet method to seam the pieces together. There are many seaming methods, but since we're making our bag in all one color, this method works great and is strong. So you're going to insert your hook into both panels like I'm doing here. And then you're going to grab a new piece of yarn, and then, yarn over and pull through like normal. So I'm just going to yarn over, pull through, and then you're going to make a chain and then single crochet into both panels. So just insert your hook again through both the front and the bottom panel like this, and then you'll just yarn over and pull through. So yarn over, pull through, and single crochet. So you'll just keep on doing that all the way to the end, and then you'll be done. And then you'll just repeat that same process for the other side of the bottom panel and the left panel, or whichever panel you started with. I like using this method because if the yarn is the same color, this is a really strong seaming method, and it's pretty easy as well. There's not a lot of other things that you have to do. It's just single crocheting like normal for the most part. Okay, so then once you're done with that last one, you'll just cut off an extra piece and then loop it through, and this is how it will look when you turn it out. So you can see you can't really tell that it's seamed because it's the same color. If you're using different color yarns, I wouldn't recommend using this method because you would see the seaming yarn through it. But yeah, this is how this is looking. You can see that there's a little corner here that's not quite connected, so I'm just going to take that extra piece of yarn on the side and pull it through. That way it stays fully connected, so then when I do add the other panel on top, there aren't any unnecessary gaps. So just like pull that through and you're all good. So this is how the panels are looking together, and now I'm going to show you how to seam the front and back panel together if you choose to add in the panel. So you're going to make sure that your ruffled edge is inside of the bag along with the other ruffled edge, and then you're going to seam into that top layer against the panel. So I'll show you what I mean. I'll set it down and just make sure that you're working right sides together. So like we did before, we're going to find that loop underneath that ruffled edge. So this is the first loop I'm finding. And then we're just going to directly transfer the hook to the other side of the panel. So of course, grab a new piece of yarn and you'll want to put that on and then yarn over and pull through. And we're using the single crochet method here as well. Again, since it's the same color yarn, you're not going to see the seaming stitches through the other side. So this is a great method for seaming. And then we'll just keep on doing that same thing. So you will stick your hook through the bottom of the ruffle and then through to the other side, and then just yarn over and pull through. So I would just keep on repeating the same method all the way across. You'll just have to kind of, move stuff a little bit as you're working and make sure you're getting into the right stitch and making sure that you're not seaming into the ruffle itself. It might take a little bit of finagling. I will say this is probably the most awkward part of the whole bag process. Is like making sure that the ruffle stays inside the bag, that everything lays flat. And you can also see that there's a little bit of bunching. You want to make sure that everything lays evenly across. If you want to kind of keep everything in place, I'd recommend using some stitch markers and kind of hold the pieces down so that everything comes across nice and neat, just like you can see here. You want it to look even all the way across with your single crochet stitches. And then once you have your ruffle on the other side, you'll repeat the same thing on the other side with your other panel. And this is how it will look with your panel pieces and your ruffled edges. It's looking really cute. If you're here at the same spot, then I would attach the bottom panel to the bottom panel of the front panel, if that makes sense, and just repeat all the same steps basically. And then you'll add your straps at the end. That's if you decide to do the panel version. If you're going to do just the normal tote bag without the bottom and right panels, then you'll attach things differently, but I'll show you that in the next step. So same thing, just add your stitches across here to the bottom panel of both the bottom panel on the front and on the back. And it will look the same. Now, here are the steps if you are just having ruffles on one panel and then attaching your back panel, so that way you don't have any, side panels, but you just have a normal tote bag, I guess, but with ruffles. So same thing, basically. You're going to lay it flat and you want to make sure that your ruffled edges are on the inside of the bag. So right side's facing again with the ruffles on the inside. You'll find the same section and you'll work into the stitches basically the exact same way. The difference being is that you don't have side and bottom panels. So the process is the same. You want to grab a new piece of yarn, yarn over, pull through, and then you'll single crochet all the way around the sides and the bottom, making sure that your ruffled edges are inside of the bag and that you're not crocheting into those sections. So as you see here, I'm just doing the same thing. I'm finding those sections underneath the ruffles and I'm just working into the stitches on the other panel. So doing a little spy work to find those loops we want to work into. and just single crocheting all the way across. So just like before, this is how it will look without the panel. You're working in the same way, but you just don't have the panel here. And this is the front and the back. It should look pretty seamless if you're working into the right section. And yeah, and then you'll just keep on doing that for the rest of the bag until we're done. Again, if you need to make sure that everything stays in place, I'd really recommend using like bobby pin or stitch markers to keep everything in place. And then when you're done, this is how the bag will look. Just exactly the same as the other one. But again, there's just no bottom and side panels. So I would recommend turning your bag inside out. Whether you worked on the one with the panels or you just have the front and back with the ruffles, and just kind of let everything lay flat. If you want things to lay truly, truly flat, you can either block it. I don't know that that's totally necessary for a bag, but you could definitely iron steam it and block it that way. So that way things lay flat. That's what I tend to do with these bags, is I'll just kind of iron down these edges to get them really flat. So yeah, and then we want to add in our straps. So to make your straps, we're going to be doing the thermal stitch. And this one, if you're a beginner, is a touch complicated, but I'm going to do my best to go through and help you accomplish it. So hopefully I can. So I would start by chaining 4, or however many you want for your strap, but I'm doing 4, and then we'll just add 1 more. So we'll have a total of 5. And what we're going to do is, instead of working in it to normal, you're going to turn it over, and you're going to see these little loops on the back of the V. So that will be the stitch that we're working into. It's not totally different from working into the front, but you just have to work underneath that little loop. So find the bottom of the loop and just go underneath it directly. You want to make sure that you have the whole stitch on there. That is something that you could mess up. So I would just make sure that the entire stitch is on there, and then yarn over and pull through, and then just single crochet like normal. So we're going to do that across the entire thing. So insert your hook into that bottom loop only, like I've done here, and then yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over, pull through 2 stitches. So that's the step for the first row. So again, just under that stitch, yarn over, pull through, and then single crochet. And then we have 1 more, and you really want to make sure that you're working into that last stitch. That is something that's very easy to skip. But you don't want to, because then your strap will start to look kind of funky. I used this bag on a trip, and I stuffed it to the max, and the straps did definitely stretch out. Okay, so I'll get back to that story, but you want to yarn over and pull through just to chain your last stitch together. And this is the stitches you're going to be working into. So this front and this back stitch, front, back stitch, all the way down. So just go ahead and insert your hook into that stitch right there. I like to work into this sideways. It's much easier for me. And then push into that bottom stitch parallel, and then yarn over and pull through, and then single crochet. So this is basically single crochet all the way through. You're just working it a bit differently. So, you want to go into that side stitch, into the bottom stitch. Also, I apologize that it's a little blurry. I hope that as I continue working that it gets a little easier for you to understand and see. But 2 stitches, yarn over and pull through. And then you have that stitch on the side again, the one directly parallel to it. And then yarn over and pull through. And those are basically the steps for the straps. You just keep on doing that. So you find that side stitch, the one parallel, and then you'll yarn over and pull through. Okay, so we're yarning over, we're pulling through, and then we're going to chain 1 and then go back in the opposite direction. So chaining 1, and then again, same thing. It might look a little weird. You can flatten it out a bit. That's how it looks on the back. And you're just going to keep on working. I like to work it to the side. It's just easier for me. Some people work it down, but I work it to the side. So just that side stitch and then the one parallel to it. So hopefully those steps are starting to be clear now. I'll keep showing you, but I do want to go back to that story. So I wore this bag on a trip that I went to, and I'll show you the finished bag at the end, of course. But I put so much stuff in this bag, way too much stuff to the point where the straps like stretched out. So even though this is cotton and this strap is really strong, I think I just like overpacked the bag like way too much. Like I just shouldn't have put all that stuff in there. So I would recommend though, if you're also using a cotton yarn like I am, that maybe you make the straps a touch shorter than you want them to be. I would maybe make them like 5 inches shorter than you want them to be. 5 inches or 10 centimeters shorter. And, maybe don't pack it to the max. At the end of the day, it is still a crochet tote bag. I know that some people will line their crochet bags with fabric, if you know how to sew or you know how to hand sew, just to make their bags a bit stronger, because when bags are just crochet on their own, they aren't totally sturdy like a piece of fabric would be, because at the end of the day, it is still stretchy, especially because we are doing a granny square as a bag that is going to create more stretch as well. But I will say the bag is really durable and it's cute, and I ended up just tying a knot on the bag strap to make it shorter, and it was great. I took it to Catalina Island with me, and I loved carrying it around. I also made a matching little rose bralette. So I'll show you all of that at the end in the reveal. But like I was doing before, I'm just doing the exact same thing with the strap. So that's literally the process the entire way through. You're just working into that top stitch and the one parallel to it. And this is how the strap looks when you are done. I definitely should have made this shorter, but you can see that it's stretchy. It's not overly stretchy until you're using it with like a million things in the bag. But it's a pretty good strap, and it will be stronger than a single crochet strap would be on its own. So this is a great alternative strap, the thermal strap. And I recently learned it right before this tutorial, so kind of worked out perfectly. So I would use some stitch markers to find the placement that you want for your straps, and then I would use a bunch of stitch markers to hold them in place, so that way you can seam them down. Right now I'm just trying to figure out placement, whether I want it to be on top or in the bottom. It really is up to you. You can seam these however you think looks best for your bag. So I'm just using a darning needle here, and I am working underneath the loops of the bag itself, and then finding, because the thermal strap has 2 layers to it, so I would find the first layer and just kind of work your darning needle into the loops on the bag and into that first layer of the strap to hold everything together. You can see that it's looking like it's together. So I like to go from the bottom right first, go all the way up across the top of the strap. I'm just removing darning stitch markers, as I don't need them. But I'm just working into the top layer now, kind of doing this little stitching move to hold that together. Do whatever feels intuitive to you. I don't think it's totally important how you do this, as long as it looks the way you want it to. It's neat. You are working all the way along the section that you want to be attached to your bag, from the sides, the bottoms, and the top. As long as you're working into the full circumference but square version of that, then it will hold in place, no problem. So I would just stitch all the way across like I'm doing here, finding sections of the bag that I'm just trying to make sure there's not an unnecessary loop there, and working into the part of the strap that you can't see from the other side and the bag itself. I hope that that's not confusing, But of course, let me know in the comments if there are things that could be clarified. But you can see that this is really secure. It's not going anywhere, and I can say even though I packed it to the max, the straps never removed or came off or got loose. So cut off those extra pieces, and then we'll weave in all of our ends. You're finally at the last end of the video. How exciting. I'm so glad that you made it this long. Let me know in the comments what else you want to see from me, and if you are enjoying this kind of content and these kind of voiceovers. So you're going to put your stitch into the back of the darning needle, and then you're just going to find stitches here and there to weave into. There are really decent seaming weaving in your end methods out there. Some projects I find that if you can kind of like loop in, like I'm doing here, loop into the little sections, that'll be the best way to keep everything neat. Sometimes that's a little harder to find, depending on what your stitches are looking like, but try to weave in as far as you can and then just cut off the excess. If you weaved it in a decent amount, you shouldn't have any issues with stuff unraveling. I do like to tie a knot at the end and then weave in those edges after. So here I am just finding little loops that I can kind of put my darning needle in, and I try to find as many as I can before and then pull it through that way. That way I can just be done in one go. Some people will weave in their edges as far as they can, so up to you, but this is how the bag is looking with all of our edges weaved in. There are some inside the bag that I left, but nobody's seeing those, right? So who cares? No, you should definitely weave those in too. If you stuck around this long, thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I hope that it was helpful for you and that you were able to create your bag. If you're a beginner, I hope that you enjoyed this beginning process of crocheting. I love crocheting so much, and I hope that you found joy in it too watching this tutorial. Let me know what you want to see next and if you found this helpful, and yeah, have a great day.